We've been very much following what's been going on in Oakland and in other cities who have been affected, specifically affected by the defund the police campaign. And that's not a political talking point. These are coming from, what I'm telling you now is coming from the people on the ground. The NAACP chapter in Oakland, community leaders in Oakland have said that this defund the police, these efforts to defund the police and the actual policy that went forward has further devastated our communities, has further devastated our neighborhoods. There have been more murders, there have been more homicides, there have been more crime. Things are unsafe. They've been unsafe for a long time, and now things are worse, right? This is what they've been saying. You know, the same people who cried for defunding the police are the ones who push that whole, they call it the deadly exchange campaign, right? The campaign that says that Israel is responsible for police brutality in the United States. So we push back on that, but more than just that, it's still just, it's detrimental to Oakland, right? It's detrimental to the communities. And so what's happening now is that things are worse than ever. I talked to a police officer as I was walking to the festival. I was probably 6 blocks away. I started to hear the music and everything. And then I talked to a police officer who's at the perimeter. And she was just talking with me about, you know, how she's like, she was a young age, an older Asian lady, maybe in her 50s. And she was talking about how just things are hard because there's less of us as police officers, and the sentiment against police officers has grown. You know, there are times when we're just tempted to let things happen, right? We see something happening on the street and we're just kind of like, oh, well, do I really want to get involved with this, or do I want to be on the news tomorrow? Like, and you know, she was like, she found it refreshing that we could just have a conversation. She said, you just never know when you're wearing this uniform, when you talk to someone, what's going to happen. And I was like, yeah. And so, but this has been happening and things have been worse and worse in Oakland. And one of the things that we've called out in relation to that is the response from particularly the city council in Oakland has been lacking, to say the least. I mean, they've just downright have been ignoring their people. Just a few months ago, there were community members wanting to go in and meet with the city council member, and they wouldn't even let them in the building. They wouldn't even meet with these people. Our CEO wrote an article called Post-BLM Oakland is crying out for help and nobody cares. And of course, in the article, he clarifies, or he's just to make sure that we're all on the same page here. The nobody cares part, it doesn't literally mean nobody. It's saying that all those people who are talking about justice and Black Lives Matter and all those things are saying nothing. They actually don't care at all, right? So despite the NAACP's call for a state of emergency, despite these members actually demonstrating in front of city council building, no response, either a non-response or pushing back. We've been tracking this. We've been calling out Black Lives Matter from the beginning because they were out in the streets talking about defund the police, and aggressively pushing this agenda. And now where are they? They're nowhere to be found. On top of that, to add insult to injury, the city council of Oakland met. They came together on Israel, and they came together to call for a ceasefire in Israel. I want to show you a video.
There's not been beheadings of babies and raping.
Calling Hamas a terrorist organization is ridiculous, racist, and plays into genocidal propaganda that is flooding our media.
I support the right of Palestinians to resist occupation, including through Hamas, the armed wing of the unified Palestinian resistance.
Asking with this context to condemn Hamas is very anti-Arab racist.
The notion that this was a massacre of Jews is a fabricated narrative.
To hear them complain about Hamas violence is like listening to a wife beater complain when his wife finally stands up and fights back.
Before we even get to what was said, I just want to emphasize this again. The city council of Oakland came together to discuss this. They wouldn't even meet with their own people to discuss people dying in their own streets. There were men and women standing outside of city council, and city council would not even let them in the building, but they're propagating lies and demonizing Israel, right? What in the world is going on in Israel has to do with what's going on in Oakland? I don't understand. Why do we not have time to discuss murders that have been happening, the homicides, the children who've been killed, the child deaths, not just on accident caught up in the crossfire, I'm talking about gang members who shoot little kids on purpose just to get at someone that they don't like. If you don't have time or energy or the willingness to sit down with your own people to talk about problems in the city in which you govern, the city wherein you govern, you have no time to discuss that, but you have time to discuss what's happening in the country all the way over there. There's something wrong at best. At worst, there's some sort of agenda happening here.